What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one I'm going to be talking about the mystery chip because about 20-30 minutes ago, before I started recording, FPL finally announced what it is and how it's going to work. So this video is going to be a one-take wonder style thing. I'm just going to go through the articles that they've put out, talk you through how it's going to work, my initial reaction and stuff like that. There probably won't be a huge amount of granular level strategy because one, I need to process it and start thinking about it a bit more than just on a reaction video. But also the chip can't be used until game week 24 anyway. So in terms of short-term strategy, it's probably not going to change your thinking a huge amount. So let's get into it. The chip is called the Assistant Manager chip. So as you might imagine, we're going to be picking managers instead of players with this chip. So this is what the article says. The mystery chip is the Assistant Manager chip. As well as picking 15 players in your squad, you'll soon be able to pick one of the Premier League's 20 managers to help you earn points. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's a nice little graphic in the article where basically when you choose your manager, there's a little picture of them that goes next to your bench, which is pretty cool, right? And obviously let me know down in the comments below what you think of this chip once you've watched the whole thing. The chip will be playable from game week 24 in January, and when you activate it, you'll be able to choose an assistant manager for 3 successive game weeks. Your assistant manager will get you 6 points for each win, 3 for a draw, 2 for a clean sheet, and 1 point for every goal. So will you be back in Arne Slot to deliver a hat-trick of victories with Liverpool? A 2-0 win would be worth 10 points in total, and you could potentially have 3 of those in a row. So there's quite a few points up for grabs with this chip. But it does go on to say, picking Slot might be a good approach, but there's more. If you pick a manager who faces a club ranked at least 5 places higher in the Premier League table at the start of the game week, there's the possibility of even greater rewards, an extra 10 points for a win, so 16 in total, or an additional 5 points for a draw, so 8 in total. So is it better to pick a manager whose club are at the top of the table or one who's lower down and primed for some big results? You decide. So if we look at how the table looks right now, there's definitely some teams lower down that you would expect to beat, or not necessarily expect to beat, where there's a good chance of beating someone higher up. So I think when you initially hear about this chip, you're thinking, right, I'm going to have Slot, Pep Guardiola, Mikel Arteta, someone like that. But because of the potential to get so many extra points if you beat a team or draw with a team 5 places higher, there's going to be a lot more thought needed. Like right now, for example, if Man United had like Brighton, Villa or Forest at home, you'd be quite drawn towards Amorim, because there is a chance that Man United can draw or win those games, right? So I think with chips, we generally prefer to save them until double game weeks, and I'm sure we will still do that for the most part. But because it's over 3 successive weeks, it's very rare you'll have double game weeks, 3 game weeks in a row. So there will be some single game weeks up for grabs, and depending on how the Premier League table looks later on, there might be some interesting teams you can go for. So that's how that works. If I go to the All You Need to Know article, I'll just jump to the bit where it actually starts talking about how it works. Yeah, when you activate the chip and choose your assistant manager, you'll score points for their club results for 3 game weeks in a row. Once the chip is activated, choosing your assistant manager does not cost a free transfer, but if you want to change your manager during this 3 game week period, it will cost a transfer in exactly the same way as players. So potentially, this is why they're now allowing us to save up to 5 transfers, because we also need them for assistant managers. Now, it might fall in a way, the double game weeks and the single game weeks, where you pick one manager and you leave them the whole way through. And I think, like a player transfer, how you use this chip will probably be so let me get my words out. How you use this chip will probably be dictated by what your transfer count is at the time. Like someone with like 1 or 2 free transfers might just pick a manager to have the same one all throughout those 3 game weeks. Someone with 4 or 5 transfers, especially with a team that looks good, might have 3 different assistant managers. And when you can get kind of 16 points for a win if you go for someone lower down the table, that sounds like a lot of points where having those extra transfers is probably worthwhile. And straight away, don't laugh, I'm already thinking, I know it's a lot of game weeks away, and they're always kind of important, but having nailed on players you don't have to worry about, that very rarely get injured, like Bruno Fernandes, Mbeumo, Salah, Palmer, etc. on penalties, they're going to be handy to hold. I think picking nailed players that you don't have to mess around with now maybe becomes even more important because you've got transfers to spend on managers instead. That's just my initial reactions anyway. That might change as we get closer to game week 24. So you can change your manager. It doesn't have to be the same one, but it's going to cost you a transfer. I don't know if it goes on to say whether you can take a 4-point hit. I'll keep reading, but I guess that's possible if it works the same way as other transfers. Remember, you can only play one chip in a game week. So if you activate the assistant manager chip in game week 24, you won't be able to use another chip until game week 27. Okay, so that's interesting. So for example, remember I was saying, I think earlier on one of the videos this week, Liverpool versus Everton, their double game week, might go into game week 25. So if you wanted to activate it in game week 24 and maybe have slot for that double, you wouldn't also be able to have your triple captain chip active. So depending on how many double game weeks we get later on and how many chips you've already got left, you might actually end up using this in single game weeks. Because I've used my triple captain, right? I've wasted it, but I've already used it, so I don't need that in a double. I've only really got my free hit bench boost, the second wild card, and the now assistant manager chip to use. And the free hit possibly could be used in a blank game week instead. So that's interesting. I didn't realise that when it first got announced, but I guess it's good to know, right? We'll figure all this stuff out later on. If a manager leaves their club, fantasy managers who own or bring in that assistant manager will still score based on the original club's performance. So if you bring in Amorim for Man United, he gets sacked or leaves, whatever, you'll still earn points for that team. How to score points. They earn points from a number of metrics, but you cannot captain them. This is basically the same stuff they had in the original article. So 6 points for a win, 3 for a draw, 1 point for a goal, 2 points for a clean sheet, and then bonus points if they're 5 places higher. Let me just see here. Yeah, higher risk, higher reward. And then it goes on to... No, we don't need to know all this. This is about different managers. In a double game week, Premier League clubs play twice in one fantasy game week. So with the assistant manager chip, you could earn points from 4 matches. Yeah, so we know that. I think we will be looking towards using it in the double game week, I think. Let me see here. It's worth bearing in mind, though, that the assistant manager chip falls within the 3 players per club quota. If you already own Mo Salah and you bring in Arne Slot, you would only have room for 1 more Liverpool player. Okay, so again, we're going to have to wait and see exactly how this is going to play out. But it just, surely we're going to use it on teams lower down the table. Because it's going to be a tricky one, isn't it? Because if it's a normal double game week for Liverpool, I would want Trent, Mo, and maybe Van Dijk, right? Maybe an attacker. I won't get into that too much, but I'm going to want to triple up. But that stops me having slot as well. So it might be worthwhile dropping one of those players if I think that Liverpool are going to do really well over a 3 game week period and I don't want to use extra transfers. I got to be honest, chips are often for engagement, and I think a lot of people will like this chip. I'm not sure it's very casual friendly though. It does already feel a little bit complicated. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. It does feel a little bit complicated, but I guess for Man City, if you didn't want to go for a team lower down and Man City turn things around, it's not very often you own 3 Man City players, right? So maybe Haaland, 1 other plus Pep might work. We'll have to wait and see. But that's interesting. I wonder if that's just a technical thing that they can't code it to not do that. Either way, right? That's how it's going to work. You'll have to pay for your manager. Each assistant manager will have a set price that will not fluctuate throughout the season. The price list will be announced in due course, but managers' prices will range between 0.5 and 1.5 million. You will need to pay for your assistant manager out of your existing budget, finding the funds by making compromises in your playing squad. I don't know if I like that. I guess it adds a bit more strategy, but maybe takes a little bit of the fun away. I now have to think about selling one of my players so I can go and use a chip for an assistant manager. But because it's worth so many points, you're going to do it. So if I was looking at my current squad right now, I've got 2.6 million. I kind of want to spend that by getting Trent. And I guess because we're only going into game week 16, I can figure out where I'm going to free up the money later. This is just another chip which is helped if you've got higher team value, which I know they can't really get away from. But if you score more points, you tend to then get higher team value. And then also you get more points later on because stuff like this is helpful having more money to spend. There'll be people out there with a very similar squad to mine that can also afford the manager without, you know, removing anyone. But I guess that's the same with any chips. It's not a huge amount of an issue. Again, I don't know if we need to worry about freeing up money right now, but I do think where possible, you want to not start right now, but have it in the back of your mind that you need to save some transfers as we get closer to game week 24, or closer to when you're going to use this chip, because injuries and suspensions will still happen, but also you've got to free up some money to get your manager in, depending on who you go for, and you might want to be transferring that manager as well as players that get injured and stuff as well. I guess the good thing about a manager, they're not going to get injured, right? And even if they did, where they weren't able to turn up for one of the games, you're still going to get points for that team. So it's not a big of an issue. In terms of who's going to be priced at what, let's do some guessing, right? So 1.5 million, slot, probably Maresca. They'll probably base it on roughly how the table looks right now. So I would say slot, Maresca, Arteta, and Pep will all be 1.5 million. I'm not sure there'll be another 1.5 million manager. I think a bunch will be 1 million. So I think Nuno at Forest, I'm going to forget all the managers' names. Unai Emery will probably be 1 million. Same for Iraola. Same for Hertzler. Probably the same for Amorim, Eddie Howe, and Ange Postecoglou. Possibly Fulham as well. And Thomas Frank, maybe. And then I guess the most of the teams lower down the table will be 0.5. So there's going to be a lot to think about. How much budget do you actually spend? Do you hope that the lower down teams can get a draw or a win against those higher ups? And do you actually just block off a player and pick a manager from one of those top teams instead? I guess it's like any player, right? You know, in FPL sometimes you get those cheaper players that are just as good as the more expensive ones, but generally the consistent points come from the more expensive players. So I suspect the consistent points will come from Slot, Maresca, Arteta, but it might be worth going a little bit cheaper. It's kind of interesting. I think my initial thoughts, look, I'm not someone that seeks out change, I would say. I don't think this chip necessarily needed to be introduced, but I don't think it's terrible either. I do think that FPL in general should understand that pricing plays such a big part in terms of how good the game is. And I think so far this year, and some of you might disagree, so far this year it's been very interesting with lots of different teams and players. And I know there's a bit of a convergence right now to Salah, Palmer and Saka, etc. But generally this season there's actually been quite a few differences in terms of how people have played. And that's because of the pricing. I don't think personally they need to keep adding chips. I think this one was very weird that they announced it at the start of the season. It's only just come out now. But presumably people are generally going to like this. And if it works well, I suspect they will keep it for next year. Apart from it will probably work from the start of the season. So, I don't know. I kind of like it. I'm not really sure what I was expecting. They had to announce something like this. They couldn't do a mystery chip where they didn't talk about it for months and then it just be like a limitless chip or double captain or something like that. That would have been a bit rubbish. So I guess they've come through on what people were kind of expecting, like something big and interesting. I guess this is what this is. It's fine. I guess we'll see how it plays out. Right? I don't like to be, you know, sometimes people do reactions to stuff, not necessarily FPL, but in other genres of video or whatever, and they're very highly opinionated about it without even seeing how it plays out. I want to see how it plays out. Are there huge advantages to some people and not so much to others? Are the swing of points just way too much? Because that's the problem when you keep introducing chips. You know, you get that swing. Like, I've only got 6 points from my triple captain. Someone might go and get 20, 25. That hurts. It could be even more with this. Right? You get lucky with one of those lower league teams. And I guess that's the whole point of the chip, right? Whether you want to try your luck. It could just be a massive, massive swing of points. And I'm not sure I particularly like that. But I'm not ready to say this is a bad chip until we see it play out. So I think overall, it's pretty good. Let me just see what other articles they've got here. Yeah, they've got best fixtures and stuff like that, but I think we can talk about that later on. Like Chelsea's 26 to 29 schedule, Villa away, Southampton at home, Leicester at home, Arsenal away. I mean, it's fine. I'm not going to go for all these. Brentford's 26 to 28, Leicester away, Everton at home, Villa at home. You don't even necessarily need to use it straight away. It might work out that, I don't know, you use your free hit in a blank, use your bench boost in, I think The big doubles later on will be 33 and 36. Don't quote me on that, I might be wrong. But use your bench boost in one of them, and then activate your assistant manager chip for one of the other doubles. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I don't think there's really too much more here, to be honest with you. Oh, it's got the... Okay, here's an interesting table. Let me just talk through this a second. If you had been able to use it from the start of the season, the assistant manager chip, the best scores you could have got so far is 47 points by picking Bournemouth's Iraola across game weeks 8 to 10. So between game weeks 8 and 10, yeah, he would have scored 47. Presumably because he beat teams above him. I don't know if it says it here. No. What game weeks was that? Sorry, let me just have a look here. 8 to 10. So for Bournemouth, that was... Yeah, Arsenal at home, they beat them 2-0. And they beat Man City. So that would have been huge. So that's why targeting those teams lower down might be worthwhile. The next one is Eddie Howe, 39 points. Then O'Neill, Wolves, 35 points. Postecoglou, 33. Arteta, 32. Maresca, 32. Silva at Fulham, 32 as well. Nuno, 32. So the spread of points is 47 from Iraola down to 12 for Russell Martin. I don't think anyone's going to be going for him. Above Southampton, the next lowest score is Thomas Frank at Brentford, 24 points. So 24 to 47 is the difference in managers. That's not including any double game weeks because we only had single game weeks so far. So you've got a potential swing of 23 points. Maybe that's okay for a chip. You wouldn't want it too much more than that, but you could get bigger swings in a double. And it's worth saying as well that actually once you get past kind of Iraola, Howe, O'Neill, Postecoglou, right? Once you get to Arteta on 32 points, you know, all the way down to Frank is 24, and that's most of the managers. There's only a 12-point difference. So that's what I kind of want from a chip, right? I want there to be... I want it to be worthwhile having to think about it, trying to maximize your points. I like that, but I don't want it to be in such a way that all of a sudden you can be 50 to 100 points behind versus someone else that plays the same chip. I just think that's a bit too much. But I think generally this is going to be quite positive. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this. If you've enjoyed the video, just a quick run through, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I don't think I've missed anything else interesting that we need to talk about. I need to go away and have a think about when this might be used. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of other content on this as well. But I suspect that having extra transfers, having nailed on players is just going to become even more important. So you're hopefully going to see me rolling transfers quite a lot over the next few weeks. Probably not this week or 17 or 18. I've got a few more moves to make. But after that, the team is set up quite nicely for a few weeks. And getting to 3-4 transfers could be decent. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of this chip. Is it positive, negative? You're going to wait to see how it plays out. And I'll catch you again tomorrow for my team selection video, where I probably won't talk about which manager I'm buying.